Hello and welcome to the latest in our ongoing series of lessons and video lectures on humanism. Humanism is important, guys, as not only does it apply to atheists who don't believe in a god, or agnostics who don't know whether there's a god or not, but there's a lot of basic human philosophies and outlooks that can be applied through the lens of humanism, regardless of what religion you're going through. So, for our junior cert students who are watching this, we again are tying this in with the idea of a search for meaning in life, for morality, for values. So you will see this in all your other religions as it makes common sense. Now, so today's lesson starts with this idea of how do you find the truth? How do humanists look for their truth and look for their sense of morality, their sense of values, their guidance system, if you so how do they find this morality? And it's very, very simple. Humanists use the idea of reason and evidence to answer questions about the world. Science explains it to them. So everything that has happened in the natural world has a biological, a geographical, or a scientific explanation to it. One of the key humanist figures in this belief, and indeed one of the key scientific figures in this, is Charles Darwin. So remember in our last video lesson, which you can go back and click on the channel, Charles Darwin, Darwin Day, is the one that is constantly appreciated and celebrated by humanists. Possibly the most important scientist of the last 200 years. The man who proved the theory of evolution and of natural selection. So while there is no gods or while there is no religious figures, for humanists who point to the use of science and the use of scientific evidence as their belief system or as their facts and how they prove that everything in this world can be explained, Darwin is a key figure. But again, as well as using reason, scientific evidence to answer a question about the world, the question is why. Very simply, they don't trust religious explanations found in the sacred texts, or indeed claims made on the basis of faith or via some sort of divine revelation. Instead, they believe that science provides us with the best method to understand the world around us. Many humanists, though, recognize that science is not perfect, but it has been successful at answering our questions about the physical world at the same time. Through science, we have made great progress in our understanding of the world. Just because there are questions we can't yet answer doesn't mean that we should resort to supernatural explanations. Humanists believe the universe is billions of years old and see no evidence of any supernatural cause or anything that can't be explained. They believe that Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection provides this best explanation for the variety of life that we have on Earth. But again, many humanists aren't, ignorant or have their minds closed to questions that we still have to answer. But something like ethics and the meaning in life, for example, which they have their own theories and their own beliefs in, aren't scientific questions. It's important also to take a minute just to pause the video and to kind of step away from the lesson and realize that just because you believe in a certain religion too doesn't mean your eyes are closed to the scientific facts. Despite what some churches and some beliefs and what some church leaders may say, that you absolutely can have a belief in the scientific and the religious. That despite what you've been told, or despite what media might tell you otherwise, or what leaders of different faiths might tell you, having a belief in the afterlife and in the religious side of it, and having a belief in the fact based scientific side, isn't mutually exclusive. So you can have both. Moving on to the non scientific questions. How do you live a good life, according to humanism? So, what do humanists do with no moral code set out in a religion or no guidelines set out in any religion? So, we can look at the humanist understanding of this under three key headings, and those headings are empathy, life's meaning, and the golden rule. Empathy. So, humanists believe that each human being has free will and must exercise this free will responsibly by seeking to do what is right and avoiding what is doing wrong. In other words, the basic fundamentals of humanity, the conscientiousness, the idea of right and wrong, of good and bad, that we should all have inherently born into us. values that are commonly held by these humanists would include fairness, respect, equality, justice, and happiness. Again, nothing that we haven't seen before. But humanists do not have any holy books or figures of authority to tell them what to do. Human beings must decide what is right and what is wrong without referring to God or the supernatural or gods or any other divine beings. Humans, they argue instead, do not need the assistance of any moral codes such as the Ten Commandments in Christianity and Judaism or the five precepts of Buddhism. Humanism teaches us instead that our moral values should not be based in our respect for authority and traditions instead. So, to have empathy is the ability to imagine what it must be like to be in someone's situation. So, that's compassion and passion. You're emotional, you understand people's feelings. Humanists believe that people can act morally using our reason, experience, and empathy for others. Humanists would believe that each person has inherent worth and dignity for human beings, and that as human beings and as members of a society, we must act responsibly towards our fellow humans. Now, life's meaning and the semantics and the way I phrase this is important. In other videos and in other PowerPoints that you'll see regards what religions, people will talk about the meaning of life. And now, with religions, the meaning of life is why are we here and what are we doing? What's going on in the next life and how do we get to the next life? But for humanists, there is no next life. You're to live in the here and now. You're to do what you can do to the best of your abilities in the here and now because there is no afterlife. So rather than saying the meaning of life, that's why we're talking now about humanists putting meaning into the life that they have now. So this is the non-scientific questions we were talking about. And humanists believe human beings have the right and the responsibility to give a meaning to their own lives. Many humanists would prefer not to ask what is the meaning of life, but instead they'd ask something like, how can I make my life meaningful? Or how can I live a good life? Because many humanists think there is not necessarily a single answer to the question of what makes a good life. It is up to us to decide. You see, it's philosophical rather than scientific. It's nearly opinion and judgment based. And for many humanists, the good life would involve more than just indulging in our own pleasures. It would instead involve, living a fulfilling life, forming good relationships, contributing to human knowledge, and developing our talents, achieving our goals, and acting to benefit for the betterment of humankind. That's how societies develop. Humanists have respect for the many diverse ways of living as long as they do not cause harm to others, or the environment for that matter, or restrict others from living a good life themselves. There needs to be a balance between individual freedom and social responsibility. And the third one that we're going to do and work on is, of course, the Golden Rule. Now, you will see this in just about every religion we've gone through. And what I have here, going clockwise for you who are watching now, you might want to pause and just read this, is the version of the Golden Rule in the various religions. So going clockwise from the top, we have the Baha'i Faith at the top, then Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, and an older religion called Zoroastrianism. Read them all, and what you will realize that even though it's phrased slightly differently, it's all more or less saying the same thing. The idea of compassion, empathy, respect, equality. And again, the Golden Rule in humanism is no different. That there's this belief that just because they don't have a religion or a sacred text, so to speak, that they shouldn't still follow the same rules. Because it's based on common sense, it's based on humanity, it's basic decency. So the Golden Rule, as we know, has appeared in many different religions and philosophies throughout history and across the world. Humanists do not believe this rule has a divine source, i.e., that it comes from God, but instead they believe it is universal and grew from our common need to be treated well by others. A humanist might consult a version of the Golden Rule, such as you would like other people to do to you, you should do to them likewise. At the heart of this rule, though, is the principle of empathy. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. and I'll talk to you all again soon.